I would define political correctness as language and other cultural practices and behaviours which seek to minimise offence to ostensibly oppressed or repressed identities, perhaps to an excessive degree. And I would also say that it's a near synonym to the terms right on, ideologically sound and loony left, which have varying connotations. And I'm going to defend it, and then I'm going to attack it. To defend it, it's essentially a liberating enterprise, and I would describe it also as left-wing. It's therefore not surprising that those whose dominance is threatened by these practices refer to it pejoratively and turn it into a straw man. Language and culture can be seen as determining our worldviews, the Sapir-Whorf Hypothesis, so the preparation of an environment where we're able to divide the world up differently may be a positive thing. This thought is expressed by Iain Banks in the culture universe with the language Marain, which is a language which attempts to remap thought so that it is actually impossible not to be liberating if you think in language. And such terms as gender-neutral pronouns are much more important. There are no gendered pronouns in Marain, for example, and there are other things, like it's probably impossible to express possession. However, this very thought is often seen as repressive in itself. It's equivalent to Newspeak and the thought police, as expressed by George Orwell in 1984. And to attack the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, I think it may be flawed. For instance, Islamic societies have strongly defined gender roles. This is reflected in Arabic grammar because it has strongly defined feminine and masculine gender categories, which extend even to the second person verbal forms, which doesn't happen generally in Indo-European languages, at least Western Indo-European languages. So you can see a reflection there. However, there are a number of languages which are widely spoken in Islamic societies which are nothing like this. For example, Indonesian, Malay, Persian, and to a lesser extent Swahili, completely lack gender categories. Swahili has gender categories, but they don't apply to masculine and feminine. And as a result, you could say, well, the reason they don't have these gender categories is that they don't need them, because to say somebody could be a female doctor would be completely absurd to them. So they don't need that because their culture is doing the prejudice for them. So I think that calls the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis into doubt. The other thing about political correctness is that it can also be seen as a substitute for action, in the same way as worshipping, protesting, signing petitions and so on make you feel good. It's a form of slacktivism. Maybe political correctness is about dealing with minutiae and rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic rather than actually doing something to make the world a better place. So rather than going and doing something practical, we comfort ourselves with these minutiae. And there's also assumptions that our view is correct, which implies that one group of people have justified true beliefs and are in some way more objective and more rational than another group of people, and also prizes rationality in a way which I think is perhaps not sensible. So what political correctness is trying to do is to avoid fallacies of inductive reasoning. It doesn't want to lump all black people together, all women together, all homosexuals together, things like that. But inductive reasoning is something that does occur in everyday thought, whether or not it's fallacious, and we may not be able to avoid it. And also it is a productive form of reasoning that leads us to useful conclusions. An example of where political correctness might go really badly wrong is the idea that sub-Saharan Africans are less intelligent than white people, because the reason they might be less intelligent is that they have malnutrition affecting their development in utero and in childhood, and that will never be addressed because they say, well, they're not affected by that because they're as intelligent as white people. That is not a helpful thing, and that is not anti-racist. So I think political correctness really corresponds to the point made in 1066 and all that, where you have the Cavaliers, who are effectively the non-politically correct, and the Roundheads, the Commonwealth, who are basically the politically correct people. And I actually think they're the spiritual ancestors of each attitude. And in 1066 and all that, the Cavaliers were described as wrong but romantic, and the Roundheads were described as right and repulsive. Now, I'm actually sort of sitting on the fence here, really, because I don't actually regard either view as particularly appealing or disappealing. I sort of feel about equal. about the two of them. And so I'd say political correctness, I don't really know. I'll see you tomorrow.